There are a lot of disabilities that are readily apparent and easy enough to understand. A quadriplegic, for example, who can't use her hands or legs because of a spinal cord injury, is easily identified, and the nature of her disability quickly understood. But autism isn't like that. Autism is an invisible disability, and the way people experience autism varies widely. The purpose of this short video series is to give you the background knowledge you need to interact with, serve, and support people who have autism in your church. In this video, we'll give you the basics of what autism is and why it matters for your church. In part 2, we'll take a deeper look at the needs and experiences of individuals and families affected by autism, especially as it relates to their experience with church. In part 3, we'll discuss practical strategies you can employ in your church to better welcome and include those with autism in every facet of church life. At the outset, it's important for us to remember that if you've met one person with autism, you've met precisely one person with autism. Far more important than knowing about a particular diagnosis is knowing about an individual. So think of this video as an orientation, helping you get the lay of the land in a way that will help you talk with those you serve who have autism. It's a jumping off point to relationship, not the beginning of expertise. After watching this video, we hope you'll have a greater degree of confidence in engaging those with autism in your congregation and community. To that end, we're going to talk about 3 aspects of autism that are important to understand. These 3 things are that autism is invisible, diverse, and important. Autism is invisible because it is a developmental disability caused by differences in the brain. You can't diagnose autism with a blood test, CAT scan, or cheek swab. You can't identify someone with autism by certain facial features or physical characteristics. Autism can only be diagnosed by observed behavior. Because of this, autism often goes undiagnosed, sometimes until adulthood and sometimes forever. The Mayo Clinic defines it as a condition related to brain development that impacts how a person socializes with and perceives others, causing problems in social interaction and communication. The disorder also includes limited and repetitive patterns of behavior. In some cases, the causes of autism can be linked to genetic condition. In other cases, they're entirely unknown. What's important to know about autism is what it means for those in your church. There's 3 things we need to recognize about this invisible disability. 1, autism is not something that can be or necessarily even needs to be cured. Number 2, autism is not a way of excusing bad behavior. It is a real neurological and developmental disability. Autism is not something that's made up. The mystery around its causes does not diminish its reality, nor does the uptick in the number of diagnoses given each year indicate that it didn't exist 30 or 40 years ago. The progress we've made at including kids with autism in the educational systems mean you're more likely to run into someone with autism today than you were in the past. But it doesn't mean that autism is a new or emerging phenomenon. The second thing for us to recognize is that autism is diverse. No 2 people with autism are identical. In the past, you might have encountered people who received a variety of diagnoses related to autism. The best known is perhaps Asperger's. But for people receiving a diagnosis today, all that variety has been collapsed into a single catch-all term: autism spectrum disorder. So while we often refer to autism, understanding why the full term is autism spectrum disorder is actually instructive in itself. Spectrum implies a range of possibilities. But what kind of range are we talking about? An autism diagnosis usually comes in 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3, which each indicate an increasing need for support. Because of this, we might imagine a spectrum that looks like this, spanning from mild to moderate to severe. But perhaps a better picture of autism would show a different sort of spectrum, with much more room for nuance and variety. Now, the point of this chart is to not have a diagram of each person with autism, but to understand the variety and differences that exist among those with autism. For example, depending on where someone falls on the spectrum, you might have someone with extremely high language skills, but low social skills. What might that look like? They might come off as overly talkative, a know-it-all, or someone who speaks at inappropriate times, too loudly, or on topics other people aren't interested in. On the other hand, someone with extremely low language skills, perhaps even to the point of being nonverbal, might have extremely high social skills. Despite having opposite issues, these two hypothetical people could share a diagnosis. From a practical point of view, getting an official diagnosis matters because it gives someone access to supports and services throughout government programs and public education. But the presence of a diagnosis or lack thereof shouldn't matter in a church setting. Meeting individuals' needs and providing supports to enable someone to be discipled at your church is a matter of biblical faithfulness. And the diversity of autism is a microcosm of the diversity of the body of Christ. 1 Corinthians 12 tells us that the eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Lastly, understanding autism is important. In the United States, about 1 in 36 children will be diagnosed with autism. This is a hugely significant percentage of the population. It's also likely that there are many adults who never received a proper diagnosis, but still in truth have autism. The other reason this is significant is that autism is one of the best predictors of whether or not someone will be part of a church community. A 2018 study done at Clemson University found that among all children with developmental delays, learning disabilities, anxiety, or conduct disorder, 1 in 4 will never attend church. This group includes those with autism. When they isolated autism, the ratio rose even higher to 1 in 3. And while this study focused on children, it's not hard to imagine the wider impact. For one thing, parents and siblings are impacted. If a child with autism is unwelcome at a given church, their whole family is affected. But it's not just the families who are affected. The church is actually impacted too. If God has called people with autism into relationship with Himself, then He's called them to be a part of a church body. And if the church isn't willing or able to accept that person with autism and their family, the church might be missing some of its God-ordained parts. This is a mission-critical issue. In the second video, we'll hear from some people with autism about their experiences with their diagnosis and their experiences at church. We'll also hear from some parents who have children with autism